So our guest for Delhi Dialogue today is Mr. Ashok Lavasa. All of you know him very well, so I don't get into a very long introduction about our guest. He is a man of many parts and he is very passionate about teaching. He started his career as a teacher, in fact. Then he worked as a bank probationary officer before joining Indian Administrative Service way back in 1980. He started his career in Sirsa as an assistant commissioner. So those days, Sirsa was known for hailstorm, sandstorm, because the Thar desert was advancing. So perhaps that was his first training in dealing with many storms that he faced eventually in his career. And also he was DM, DC, they used to say those days of Gurgaon, when Mewar was still part of Gurgaon, I believe so. And he served in almost all the departments in Government of India, and so to speak. Like he served in Home Department, he served in Finance, he was a very well-known expenditure secretary, Finance. Then he went on to become one of the election commissioners, which is very familiar to all of us, where he is also known for his dissenting opinions. So without much ado, I think we will straight away get into some questions. And also it is very coincidental that we are hosting Mr. Lavasa a day after Election Commission has announced Bihar election. So Bihar election was in the news for all right or wrong reasons, depending on which way you look at it.
So I think since the bugle has been sounded yesterday, and this is the subject which is most catching most attention and has been in discussion for 2 or 3 months. So let me just say a few words, because this is one of the issues which not only is the core purpose why the Election Commission exists, that is making of electoral rolls, the other being conduct of elections, and the third being that their election commission is expected to provide a level playing field when the process of elections is on. So I think these are the three core functions of the election commission, which according to the constitution have been expected. Now, I think the attention from the EVM, which was for a long time the subject of much controversy, has shifted to the electoral rolls now. Preparation of electoral rolls has a very interesting history. It has a lot of very elaborate provisions which are given in the Representation of People Act and in the concerned rules of registration of voters. And I don't think I need to repeat the effort which was made by the first Chief Election Commissioner in preparation of electoral rules. So that's a long story, but a very famous story. What it underlies is a lot of pain was taken to make electoral rules. It has had its problems, and of late, some of these problems have surfaced. The special intensive revision, which was announced by the Election Commission in the month of June, I think needs to be seen in both the specific context of Bihar and in the larger context of the problems with electoral rules. And I have gone on record to say that this particular exercise was, according to me, abrupt. It was aggressive and it was ambitious. And because of all the three reasons, I said that it was avoidable at this point in time. And the reason why I said these three things can be understood if you look at three perspectives. One is, what was the purpose of the special intensive revision? What were the principles that were followed? And what was the procedure that was adopted? So if you look at all the three dimensions, then many things become clearer. The stated purpose, which I have no reason to doubt, was to keep all eligible voters inside the electoral roll and remove all the ineligible voters. This was the purpose which was stated by the Election Commission in their order of 24th June. Can anybody challenge this objective? I don't think anybody can challenge this objective, especially because people had observed that there are problems with the electoral roll. Election Commission itself is also aware, has been aware about what are the discrepancies that creep into the electoral roll. So on the purpose, there can be no dispute. I think on the authority of the Election Commission, which was one of the issues identified in the petitions before the court, on that also, I don't think anybody can challenge the authority which Election Commission has on conducting, on preparing the electoral roll, on revising the electoral roll, on carrying out revisions, summary or annual revision, even intensive revision. So these three words have been used in the concerned rules: summary revision, annual revision, intensive revision. The special intensive revision is not a phrase that is used in the Act or in the rules. So when you look at the notification of 24th June, that is where people started analyzing the principles behind this revision. And I think there are two things which created difficulties. In none of the revision exercise in the past, Election Commission did what they did in this SIR. And that was, first, they used a phrase which Election Commission never uses. They said that all the voters or all the electors who were in the roll as of 2003, in their case, there is a probative evidence of eligibility. So this much is okay. But they also said there is a presumption of citizenship. Now, whereas according to Article 326, which defines the eligibility criteria for being an elector, you need to be a citizen of India to be a voter. There cannot be any doubt on that. But whether Election Commission has employed this phrase that in the revision exercise or even in the enrollment exercise, we are ascertaining and certifying your citizenship. They have never stated this. Obviously, it is always implied that anybody who is enrolled will be only enrolled if Election Commission is satisfied that he is a citizen of India. There are ways in which Election Commission has done it in the past and has been doing it for 74 years. The other thing which they did was to make a distinction between existing set of electors. So I think it is a little irrational for any organization to say that even if I have admitted you in the electoral roll after following due process, which I have prescribed, today I am going to divide you into two groups. Those who are registered till 2003, those who are registered after 2003, thereby creating a division which Election Commission has never done in the past. And by the way, in the notification of 24th June, it is mentioned that all these voters, 7.89 crore, who were registered till 24th June, they were registered in keeping with Section 23 of Representation of People Act after due satisfaction of the ERO. It is mentioned in that. So if that is presumed, then why make a distinction between two sets of voters? And then in the second lot, which is post 2003, again there is a division of three categories of voters. Those who were born between July 85 to December 2004, those born before 1985, those born between 85 and December 2004, those born after 2004. So clearly this is to make it aligned with the provisions of Citizenship Act. Now, the point which I'm trying to highlight about the principles is that whereas EC has never said that we are admitting any non-citizen as an elector, the procedure that they have followed has sufficient safeguards, and it relies on the presumption that somebody who has lived here for a long, long time, about him, nobody objects. If there is a person who has lived here for a long time, he claims that I am a citizen of India, because that is the undertaking which any elector is expected to make when he fills Form 6 as a first time voter, that I undertake that I am a citizen of India. He does not attach any evidence of his citizenship for the simple reason that in India there is no single document which can certify your citizenship, which the government has issued. So a certain procedure was employed by ECI for all these years. So that is what was followed. So what is happening now is there is a clear intent to say that we are going to ascertain citizenship, which, by the way, later was retracted, because in the affidavit which was given in the Supreme Court, ECI said that if somebody is not found in the electoral roll, it doesn't mean that he loses his citizenship. But look at it from this way, that if there were at that point in time more than 3.5 crore voters who, according to ECI, had been enrolled after 2003. And ECI is saying that pre-2003, there is a presumption of citizenship, which implies that post 2003, unless we are satisfied with your documents, we don't treat you as a citizen. So I think this was problematic. The other thing is that, in India, from the beginning, the approach has been that the machinery goes to the people and enrolls them. That yes, you are Indians. We want all of you to get into the electoral roll. It's pretty much like a census operation, where the machinery employed by the Election Commission goes to the people and ensures that they don't miss out anyone. The onus has never been on the citizen to apply that please enroll me. That has not been the way ECI has worked in the past. And that is the reason why the EP ratio in India is so good. Unlike many other countries, where even in the US, I'm told the EP ratio is about 74-75%. So in this case, the principle is turned upside down, and people are said that you have to give the document. And the documents will be the 11 that we have. It's an old story. I need not go into all that. Finally, the procedure. So the procedure used for this SIR is different from previous intensive revision. According to the Election Commission, the last intensive revision done in Bihar was in 2003. The order announcing that intensive revision, which also gave out the procedure, that order, unfortunately, is not available in public domain. So nobody can say with certainty that this is a procedure which was followed in the past, and now this is a difference. Whereas I think that an organization like Election Commission, even if it was changing its procedure, they should have told the people very clearly that, look, this is what we did last time, this is what we want to do now for the following reasons. Essentially, the difference in the procedure is that earlier it was a door-to-door survey. People, they were not called BLOs at that time, but these field functionaries, they would go with the list of electors in every house as per their record. And they would go to the household, talk to the eldest person in the family or whoever is available, and ascertain whether this is the name we have, person residing in this house. Is he or she alive? Is this the correct name, age, etc.? And then the field functionary was expected to, under that, write the name according to what he has asserted. So this time there is no field survey. There is no door-to-door survey. And the procedure employed is that the data which is available with the Election Commission, that data is used to print a pre-filled form. And that form is delivered to the elector, and he is expected, and of course the form carries a photograph of the elector as per ECI record. And the instructions were that the BLO will distribute these forms to all the electors. In the second round, he would go and collect these forms which have been signed or thumb impression, and the latest photograph pasted by the elector, and collect these forms and bring it back. If you were more post 2003, then you had to give one of those documents. Immediately on announcement, when there were reports which were published that the 11 documents are hardly available with people, or only these many percentage of people possess these documents. So the ECI changed its procedure, and they said that in the first phase, which was to end on the 25th of July, whereas earlier you were asked to submit your signed form with the documents, they said it doesn't matter, you just submit your form, documents you can give later. And there were several other procedural issues. For example, and I'll end by saying this, for example, in the instructions, if you read them carefully, of 24th June, it is mentioned that upon the collection of these forms, the BLO would make his recommendation. So if you don't have a document, how will you make a recommendation? It is further mentioned that all those who are not recommended by the BLO would be verified by a senior officer, which is the AER. This exercise was to be completed before 25th of July, when the draft electoral roll was to be published. So, but in the absence of these documents, neither can you make a recommendation, nor can anybody verify cases which are not recommended. So eventually, everybody who submitted the form, or everyone's form which was submitted, all those found mentioned in the draft electoral roll, 7.24 crore. Now, it's now gone. I mean, it's something which is over. So I don't think anything much can be done about it. The final roll has since been published. But the reason why all these issues are important is that now they have to roll out for the entire country. This exercise, according to ECI's notification of 24 June, is not confined to Bihar. Even in the press conference yesterday, the CEC has said that we will announce the schedule for special intensive revision in other states by and by. The question, I think, important for all of us to understand and for EC to clarify is what will be the procedure for the special intensive revision in the nationwide exercise.
So what impact of SIR do you see in voter turnout in Bihar election?
Well, it's difficult to link the SIR with the voter turnout. One simple fact is that the roll which existed before the SIR, that had 7.89 crore. Now the final electoral roll has 7.42 crores or 43 crores. So to that extent, the population of electors has reduced. But I don't know, in absolute terms, maybe more number of people could vote. So it is not possible for anybody to link the voter turnout percentage or even absolute number with the electoral roll that has been published.
Sir, adding to this, let me ask. Now the first draft was like 65 lakhs people were removed. The second the final list 68 lakhs, but then 21 lakhs have been added. So the net addition is around 47 lakhs, right? So, but their opposition parties and other civil society, they've been saying that there have been mass deletions, and there is no explanation for deleting this migrants or women and the other groups. So, but then my other question is, I mean, what kind of mechanism should be there to address this? And my second question is, should we be relieved because this number has come down, right? It's 47 lakhs now. So is it because of the intervention of the Supreme Court, which nudged the commission to publish the details, or to add Aadhaar as one of the documents? So how do you see it?
No, I think one thing which has come out of this exercise, also because of the intervention of the Supreme Court, is that Supreme Court asked the Election Commission to publish a list of all the 65 lakh voters who were deleted from the draft roll and give the reasons for the deletion. So if you look at the Act and the registration of electors rules, the rules already provide that no person who has been once included as an elector can be deleted without giving him a notice and the reason why his name is supposed to be deleted. So the exercise of SIR which ECI did, they treated it as a de novo publication of electoral rolls and said that if we are publishing the rolls de novo, then all those who are not mentioned in this, we are not obliged to give reasons why they are not included in this. Now, the question is that legally, the stand which ECI took might be correct. Because, for example, in the case of the first time electors, 18 to 19 years, generally in the country, about 50% 18 to 19 cohort is not registered as electoral because they don't come forward to register themselves. Or they are students, they are studying somewhere, they are not found in the place where they work or where they live, whose names are not included as first time voters. So they took this explanation, justification for not publishing the names of those who are not included in the draft electoral roll. But the question is whether it was fair to those who were already on the electoral rolls. So I have full right to know why my name is being excluded. And that is why Supreme Court said that you give the reasons. The point to understand about this, although it's a very extreme example that I'm giving, that if you were an elector in 1951, first elections which were held in 51, 52, and you continue to be an elector in 2003, in 2025, before the SIR, your name has existed in all the electoral roll. The procedure employed this time would mean that the pre-filled form that is given to you, and you may be 94, 95 years old, but because you don't resubmit that form, your name will be deleted. So is this a fair procedure? That is the question. And therefore, I think Supreme Court rightly intervened and said that, okay, you have full authority to delete whatever names you find illegible, but please let people know whose names have been deleted and why they have been deleted. So, I think that is the reason why this was done. Now, subsequently, in the final roll, as you mentioned, there are some 21 lakh people who have been added, 3.5 lakh or 3.2 have been further deleted. Their reasons, again, have to be publicized, why they have been deleted. There could be good reason. The test ultimately is whether these people whose names have been deleted, how many come forward to say that my name should be included again because it has been wrongly deleted. So that is a question which I think all of us, whether you are pro SIR or against SIR, you have to address this question. If somebody's name has been deleted because it was earlier enrolled, but now he did not submit his form, that person should come forward and say that my name has been deleted. On the other hand, as far as the procedure is concerned, which I just mentioned in my introductory remarks, if you did not have a system of door-to-door survey and you only ask people to resubmit the pre-filled forms, then how can you say that a person has permanently migrated? You can say he has not resubmitted the form or he was absent. We could not deliver the form. But you cannot say that he is permanently shifted. And that's why later on this category of permanently shifted was merged with permanently shifted, stroke, form not resubmitted, stroke, form not delivered.
Are we now assured that there is no foreigner in the final list in Bihar? And if that, does it mean that there are no foreigners in Bihar?
Well, this question I think was asked of the CEC yesterday, the day before yesterday in Patna. I don't know if the data which has been published so far of the names that have been deleted classifies any of the deletions into being non-citizens. So till that data is out, nobody can say it with certainty. But as far as existence of non-citizens in the electoral roll is concerned, this is not something which is overlooked by the rules and regulations. Because as I said, that if you know that so-and-so is not a citizen of India, but his name exists in the electoral roll, you are fully entitled to file an objection against him. That is what the procedure provides. You file an objection giving a document or any proof which casts doubt on that person's eligibility. That is a good enough reason for the ERO or AERO to start an inquiry against the eligibility of the person who has already been enrolled. All that it requires is that he'll have to give that person a notice and an opportunity that, look, this is the evidence I have received against you. What do you have to say? After, if he is satisfied that this person is indeed not, he has not produced enough evidence before me to justify his inclusion, he will refer his case to the Ministry of Home, which is the custodian of the Citizenship Act. In fact, this is what was done in Assam when the D voters list was prepared. several years ago. A D voter list was similarly prepared for anybody whose citizenship was doubted. D was doubtful voters. The difficulty with that procedure is that till this day, after so many years, we don't know how many of those who were in the D voters list have been either readmitted or have been permanently disqualified. All that we know is that anybody who was in the D voters list, his right to vote has been suspended. And therefore, when the citizenship register was made last time, in the process of being made, and a tentative list of 19 point a few lakh people as non-citizens was identified, their names have not been deleted by the election. They said first the competent authority must give its verdict, whether somebody is a citizen or not a citizen. Only then we will change our rule. Till then, we have no right to suspend somebody's voting right. Yeah.
So my question is, what is the redressal procedure for the voters whose name have been deleted? And is it adequate enough considering that Bihar has a large rural population?
There are two stages of redressal as per the rules. One stage is after the publication of the draft rule. So in this case, the draft rule was published on the 1st of August. Thereafter, people had time to file objections. Now that the final rule has been published, they still have a remedy. They can still file objection and say that we have been wrongly deleted. The procedure for appeals now is that they can file an appeal to the district magistrate, who is the DEO, the district election officer. If they are dissatisfied with the DO's verdict or judgment, they can file an appeal to the CEO. The problem with this is that now there is not enough time before the elections, because as was mentioned in the press briefing yesterday, that 10 days before the filing of the finalization of nominations, they will stop enrolling new voters, new electors. And that's why a lot of people have suggested, I have suggested, that when you do this special intensive revision, there has to be more than adequate time for redressal of grievances. Somebody could have made a mistake. Because of that mistake, why should an elector lose his right? So, in the past, when 2003 the intensive revision was done, the Bihar elections were scheduled to take place in 2005. The revision was done in 2003. And I'm quite certain that if the special intensive revision is undertaken in a state which is facing polls in 2027 or 26, there will not be so much of hue and cry. And that is why I said that the abruptness of the announcement, especially when the state assembly elections are around the corner, that created a lot of doubt, apprehensions in the mind of people. Some of them may be genuine, some of them may not be genuine. But the genuineness, as far as I am concerned, is that there is not enough time for people to redress their grievance.
Sir, amid all the confusion and comparison, the people want to know, does a country like India, which is witnessing sharp rise in its population, need an exercise like SIR?
So on this, as far as the Election Commission is concerned, in the past, I think in 2003 or 4, there was a view taken that because of computerization of data, an intensive revision exercise might not be required.
Yeah.
The periodic revision which is done. But my view is that, many of these decisions are subject to review with the passage of time. And even in the Representation of People Act, there is a provision that intensive revision can be carried out selectively if there are sufficient inputs for the Election Commission to believe that a certain electoral roll has been contaminated.
Oh,
So if you get inputs that, let's say, in some assembly constituency, there is large-scale migration that has taken place. And many people whose names are on the electoral roll, they have actually now left that area. Or any other kind of input that you might get about large-scale contamination of the electoral roll, which requires an intensive revision. So you can carry out an intensive revision in that assembly constituency, in that parliament constituency, in a group of districts if you want.
not across the country.
But as I said, that the Election Commission does have the authority to carry out revision in the manner which it deems fit. That is what the Act says. And that is why I don't think the court has still questioned the authority of the Election Commission to carry out an intensive revision. Now, having said that, see, migration is a fact of Indian life. People do migrate. People do get themselves registered in more than one place. Either, and I'm sure that most of these people, they do it out of neglect. They don't do it because they have a criminal intent. Although it's a crime, according to the Act, to be enrolled in more than one place, so far, ECI has never taken legal action against anybody on this account because they are confident that, okay, you may be enrolled in more than one place, but we are confident that you will be able to vote only once. Right? But more than that, duplication or deduplication of voters is an extremely difficult exercise. Now that the electoral rolls throughout the country have merged, to that extent it has become simpler. But you can imagine a few years earlier, 25, 30 years ago, when every district used to have its own electoral roll. Every state had its own electoral roll. Even the rolls of two parliament constituencies or assembly constituencies could not be matched with each other because there was no computerization. So for anybody to find out that this person whose name is Murli, son of so-and-so, there could be hundreds of people with a similar name. And if for some reason you spelled your name Murli in one place and Murlee in another place, even if you are the same person, how do we know that you are the same person? So deduplication has been a very complicated exercise. ECI realized this some years back and they employed different kinds of software to detect one level of commonality, two levels of commonality, three levels of commonality. So they kept deleting as many people as they could, and I think there is statistics available. ECI will tell you that in the last so many years we have deduplicated so many voters. Now, because of the common roll, it may become simpler. So this is a problem which ECI has been aware, it has been attempting. The other problem was the one that was pointed out by Chief Minister of West Bengal, that two voters had the same epic number. So that's a technical glitch, which I think the ECI said that we'll remove, and probably they have succeeded in removing this. I'm not sure about this, but this is what the CEC said in his first press conference, that within 90 days we'll remove this glitch.
Sir, how is the constitutional functionary bodies like Election Commissioner of India will maintain their independence and unbiasedness, keeping in view the fact that there are pressures mounting on Election Commission of India from political parties and other quarters? And my second question is that, sir, do you think that this Bihar SAR exercise would have negative impact on the voters in Bihar?
The second question is political. I am not equipped to answer that question. But on your first question, What was your first question?
This maintaining of impartiality and
Yeah, that's an important question. How has ECI maintained its image of impartiality for the last 74, 75 years? I think one of the fundamental things for any organization to do, especially an organization which is mandated with the task of conducting elections, is to be transparent, completely transparent. So the more transparent you are, the all your facts, figures, your procedures, they should be fully open for people to understand and even for people to scrutinize. The second is that I think ECI has succeeded in cultivating an image of impartiality because it has engaged very constructively with civil society organizations in the past. It has never closed its doors to NGOs or political parties. You can go with any suggestion whatsoever. And that suggestion will not be dismissed outright. It will be considered. And I think the third thing for any organization and EC also is that you can never be complacent about your systems. However confident you might be about your systems being foolproof, I think it is worthwhile for any organization to subject its procedures and systems to continuous review. You never know, because if you're technology dependent procedures, technology is changing. So you have to keep yourself abreast. Same is the case with procedures. Your procedures could be faulty. So if somebody points out that this is what my experience is, then you must review your procedures. I think, but at the end of it, the point is that how do umpires maintain their neutrality in when they conduct games? When you are dealing with the players, then you don't make a distinction that so and so is a player who scored 100 centuries, so I can't give him out on LBW. I'll have to consider review by decision. That's not the way umpires work. But on the question of transparency, since we are talking about cricket, there is a clear example that 20, 30 years back, there was not even live telecast of matches. So it was just the game being played, umpire taking decisions. Nobody would know whether the decision was right or wrong, except the players or the spectators. But gradually, you moved into a more transparent system where you had third umpire. First you had television, then you had third umpire, then you had DRS. And that DRS is also displayed on screens. So whatever material is available for the third umpire or the umpire is also available to the people, based on which the umpire or the third umpire is making his decision. He could be wrong. But the point is that it is available to everyone, and based on that input, that person who is in charge of making that decision, he has taken his decision. He could have gone wrong. That's not the point. But the more transparency you have, I think the better it is for the system.
So who do you think can be a third umpire?
Good question. I think the judiciary is the third umpire. Because ultimately, the decisions of the Election Commission are subject to legal review by the by the courts. If there are elections, there are provisions for election petitions, and so whatever decisions are taken, only during the process of election, Article 329 bars the jurisdiction of the civil courts. Otherwise, people do review, and I think people review. Not only institutions, but people review.
Is it necessary?
Bihar SAR exercise process which is being conducted and which is being conducted is the need of the hour at this point of time, because the election is there in the November month.
So I think the process of review, removal of voters or admission of new voters is available even if you don't conduct an SIR. So the question is, for example, and people have asked this question, so it's a question which can come to anybody's mind. The summary revision which was carried out in Bihar, based on that, the rules were published in January 2025. Because according to the Act, any state where there is an impending election, there has to be a revision, summary revision. So that summary revision was carried out at the end of 2024 and the rule was published in January 25. Now, during the special intensive revision, if you say that 22 lakh voters have died, does it mean that they have died after January 25? That data is not available. That could only mean that the earlier exercises that were carried out probably were not done with proper diligence. And in this case, and that is why I am saying that ECI could give a good justification on why they have employed this process. And because according to this process, if I give you a form and you don't exist, your form will not come back. And I'll delete your name. Whereas the established procedure is that even when somebody was reported to be dead, ECI would give a notice that lest somebody should be giving you false information. So, the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, in keeping with that, if you are recorded as dead, that did not mean that ERO has the authority to delete your name directly, unless he has followed the procedure of giving notice that this is the person who is reportedly dead. Is there any objection? I think what all this is pointing to is that the procedure which ECI has always followed is open, transparent, inclusive. And whether that process should be given up for a mechanical bureaucratic process. If you look at a book which was written by an Israeli political scientist, Ornit Shani, I think was the name. She has written a very interesting, very well researched book on, it's called How India Became a Democracy. And she has analyzed the process of preparation of electoral rolls in 1950-51. And she has used a very interesting phrase. She says that this was possible because of the democratic imagination at that time which guided this process, not a bureaucratic process which guided. Because that time, people who were and this I'm quoting from a book, people who were living in the Maidans of Bombay, even when they were not paying any rent to the municipal corporation, they were also enrolled. And there are rulings of the courts in India that if you have slept under a flyover for 48 hours, you are entitled to be enrolled as a voter.
2011 Bengal elections, EC, one of the most well-known EC officials, KJ Rao, had made this statement which has become very controversial at one point, which was discussed and made headlines. He had said that, Bengal electoral rolls had to be cleaned up. Bangladeshi entrants have to be cleansed out to ensure Bengal has free and fair election. This was 2011. So 1999, 2011. So is it a failing of the EC or our technological situation that we have not been able to evolve a system whereby deletion of dead voters becomes automatic and mandated. And it is an initiative which is not just taken on behalf of the exercise done by the Election Commission, but also the voter somewhere. The way a voter, citizen has to take a death certificate, shut down, Should there be a process like that to make sure, because voting right is so fundamental to our democracy, it is probably the most sacrosanct act. When that is put under question, and there are doubts in people's mind about that, because this is a very, very hard-earned independence, sovereignty, and democracy and adult franchise that we have got. So how do we safeguard it, in your opinion?
So I think it's an excellent question. The way to look at it is this, that let's say one polling station in any urban or rural area, and there are 1,000, 1,200 electors enrolled in that. Now, the point is, what are the reasons for that electoral roll to change? One clearly, as you said, is death. Somebody has died. The legal process is for registration, to follow the Registration of Deaths and Births Act and get a death registered. Is it followed 100%? Maybe now, yes. There were times when people would not care to register, or the system was not in place. So, as I said, that the EC thought that my job is to preserve and protect the voting right of individuals. So, I'll follow my procedure. Somebody is saying that my father has died. Please delete his roll. I'll publish a notice. If there is a contrary information available, I'll come to know that. I'll then be able to decide. But automatically, there was no provision. Even today, there is no provision that because you register a death, the death registration system will speak to the electoral registration system and there will be an automatic deletion. The second is migration. Do we have a system of registration of migrants? We don't. You're doing a job here today, you get transferred to Chennai. You don't register it anywhere. So how would the EC incorporate such a safeguard? And that is why I said that in any exercise of purification or updation has to be through a door-to-door survey, where a functionary goes. After all, if you have 1,100 or 1,200 or let's say even 1,400 electors in your jurisdiction, it will involve going door to door to 200, 250, 300 houses. It's not an impossible task. After all, as I said, look at our census operations. They are also conducted by means of a door-to-door survey. So, the entire, I think, thinking of the ECI has been exclusion should become difficult. Inclusion should become easy. There are so many people who are migrating from one place to another. There are so many people who are illiterate. How do you protect, how do you give them their voting rights? Make it as easy as possible for them to enroll. It is the state's function to determine the citizenship of individuals or to prevent people from coming into the country. So that is their responsibility. It may be a problem, but why should an organization which is not equipped to handle this undertake this job? That is the question. By the way, there are countries where ECI has been given this responsibility, that you a certain citizenship. And the question which was raised earlier, that today out of all the 11 or now 12 documents which are listed, there is only one document out of those 12 which you can claim is an evidence of my citizenship, which is a passport. Because technically, Government of India is not supposed to give a passport to somebody who is not a citizen. So if you have a passport, you can say that bhai main to Hindustan ka nagrik hu. The same applied to Epic. Because you have an Epic card, you can claim that if I was not a citizen, I would not have got an Epic. And the other day I heard Dr. Qureshi saying that somebody raised this issue because for people who go from India to Nepal, you don't need a visa. They would only see your Aadhaar card or Epic card, not Aadhaar, Epic card. कि भाई वोटर है तो ठीक है, he is an Indian citizen. So now they are saying that if you don't trust your voter card, we will also not trust your voter.
Yeah, somewhere down the line, that is what is of concern to many people, that through this process, which has not been entirely transparent, actually vulnerable section of the population, there is a fear that there may be a disenfranchisement. That is a very grave concern. So how, and we are going into a countrywide SIR between Bihar and that, how can it be ensured that this doesn't happen?
That is why I said that, you see, the character of ECI, which is friendly, inclusive, that character has to be retained. Their priority is not to delete voters. Their priority should be to include voters. Number one. Number two is that, it is possible to do a tabletop exercise. For example, the kind of irregularities which are in common knowledge. So if you do a tabletop exercise and say that, okay, somebody whose house number is 0 or some other irregularity which I can find out, can I clean up the roll based on this? At least I identify that so many errors are there in my roll. Then, based on the learnings that we have from SIR Bihar, can we evolve a more friendly procedure? So I would feel that based on whatever ECI has learned, based on whatever inputs it has got from people, based on whatever the courts direct, they should now draft another guidelines for carrying out SIR if SIR has to be conducted throughout the country. And yes, I don't mind actually if an SIR exercise is conducted. That those draft guidelines should be discussed with all the stakeholders. That look, this is what we intend to do. After all, cleaning up of electoral roll is not a surprise check, or it is not like some enforcement exercise which you suddenly want to do. It has to be a time-consuming, rule-based exercise, as transparent as possible. So, after you have discussed these guidelines with the stakeholders, then you finalize your guidelines. And I would say that after the guidelines are followed, spend 3-4 months in just carrying out a campaign. Tell people that this is the purpose of our exercise. This is how we'll do it. And this is what we expect you to do. So if you prepare people fully, if you prepare your machinery fully, then I think the exercise will not have so much of noise.
So, any more questions? Yeah.
Sir, an allegation has come out of recent side that ECI has to work under pressure from corridor of power. Did you face during your tenure any pressure from corridor of power?
Pressure, जो है ना, it's a very physical kind of thing. It's a principle of physics. Because pressure is both how much some external force is put on you and how much you feel. That is pressure. And the way I look at it is perfectly acceptable or understandable, not acceptable, for people to say what they want from you. But ultimately, it is for me to decide what I want to do. because I am supposed to fulfill a constitutional job, responsibility. And as I said, that when you're in a position of an umpire, then you have a role to do. And you have to stick to that role. If, let's say, political parties come to you with some demand, if the opposition comes to you with the same demand, it is not pressure. But the ruling party comes to you with that demand, it is pressure. Right? So you ultimately, I think it a lot depends on how the people understand their role and whether for doing the right thing, why should I be under pressure?
Can an election commissioner truly function independently given the structural hierarchy and appointment process?
Additional question was this only, whether we need to revisit it. Because the EC, the opposition parties, after the first press conference, described him as a politician, not as an election commissioner.
Can I ask you a counter question? Has the country had good election commissioners, outstanding election commissioners? Is there anyone?
Session.
Who appointed?
The government of
Any number of them. Election Commission was the hero of the people.
Exactly.
Right?
Very high credibility.
So one is my belief, which you may not agree with, no procedure can guarantee the desired outcome. You may follow the best of procedures, but it will not necessarily give you the outcome that you want. Therefore, the fault is not in the procedure. If at all there is a fault, it is in the individuals who are discharging that responsibility. Right? Now, and this question has gained currency in the last 2 years after that Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court judgment came because there was a provision in the Constitution of making rules which are not made so far. Right? And the Supreme Court said that, look, there will be a selection panel in which Chief Justice will be there. There will be 2 other Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition. Till the Parliament makes rules. So Parliament made rules. I think my view in the matter is that it was an opportunity which the government lost in broad-basing the selection process. If you broad-base the selection process, then it gives more confidence to people. If the Chief Justice had continued, all these questions would not have arisen. But the question is that is everyone satisfied with all the selection that have been made by committees in which Chief Justice is a member? So it is only a question of creating a system which is broad-based and which people feel that, okay, as I have heard many other ECs say that Dr. Qureshi is very fond of saying this, and that's why I'm quoting him. He says that he would have been very happy if the leader of opposition had been involved in his selection process so that you feel confident. I have been approved by everyone. So, yes, system needs to be broad-based to create confidence of people. But more than the system, I think the individuals who are chosen, they have to understand what is expected by the Constitution and by the people from this.
Sir, you are an expert in your field, sir. Sir, it's a basic question that can a machine be hacked? If a phone can be hacked, if a computer can be hacked, if an email can be hacked. So if it can be hacked, sir, because there are many experiments done. ECI always meant.
But for your information, I am MA in English literature.
And you got literature also.
lies with the incumbent CEC that makes him so controversial as a citizen?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
What fault lies with the incumbent Chief Election Commissioner that makes him so controversial in the idea of opposition?
I don't think that it is fair or possible for me to make an assessment of that kind. I can only talk about systems.
This opposition's main browsers is machine readable. What it is.
Okay, so I think this is a good point, that why does the Election Commission not give machine readable formats? This has been discussed a number of times in the Election Commission. And the genuine concern of the Election Commission has been that they should not make it easy for people to manipulate the document. So if I give a Word format to somebody, I mean, you all are in the business of writing articles. If I give you a Word format article, you can so easily change that. I will not even come to know that you've changed my article. So then ECI said, we'll give you a PDF image format. That's what they do. Now the question is that should they give a machine readable format? I think this is a question which has to be thoroughly examined. That with the change in technology and improved technology available, how does the ECI protect its document? Is it possible that you give the machine readable format and give a disclaimer that when it comes to authentication or questioning dispute, only the document available with ECI will be considered to be the valid document, nothing else. But then, are you opening up a ground for many controversies to arise? I'm not saying that what ECI should do. All that I'm saying is it is a question which should be openly examined. That if I give it to you in machine readable format, then how do I protect the sanctity of my document? It may be possible. If it is possible and ECI is convinced, I think they should be open to giving it in machine readable.
Election Commission to present his case. That is what is traditionally done and was not done. But each and every political party has a right to go and question the EC on the issues relating to election. That is a basic right. And the Election Commission will have to address those questions. That has been the system till now. Okay.
Yeah, but I agree with you, but there have been instances where Election Commission would take notice of even a newspaper article.
Right.
And they will consider whether this is serious enough to be looked into.
Right.
So you have to distinguish the contents of a complaint from the complainant.
Right.
If their contents are serious, grave enough, then I think I have to be responsible.
Right, absolutely.
To examine the contents of it.
Yeah. Like the Supreme Court takes suo motu, cognizance of reports. I'm sure many of us have that experience that has to.
This is not taking cognizance of a media report is not suo motu.
Yeah.
Somebody has taken the trouble of writing it
Right.
and bringing it in the public domain. So I'm taking note of that.
Yeah.
And mind you, the C-Vigil app, which Election Commission introduced in 2018, that actually depended on citizens becoming more and more aware, alert, and responsive to the election.
Right. Yes.
So they didn't say that no, when you file a complaint on C-Vigil, we'll hold you to account.
Right. Right. In fact, one of the stories my stories, which we detecting this, there were large number of political parties crop up. Okay, so we did actually investigation on those, and it was found that many of them don't. The addresses are fake, or they're operating some other offices operating from that address. They were fake, political parties. And there was a big report that was carried. And actually, CEC was Gopal Swami at that point of time. He took cognizance and wrote to the government based on this the series we did. So there have been such, in fact.
Yes, because as I said this, I was telling somebody that there are two mottos which ECI follows. No voter should be left behind, and every vote counts. So you have to create an environment in which maximum number of people are included in the electoral roll, and you have to create facilities by which maximum number casts their vote. That is the guiding principle of Election Commission.
So how fair the Bihar elections will be, keeping what you said in your motto, this AC's motto. So how fair they are?
Why should you prejudge the outcome at this point?
I'm not prejudging. I'm just this is my query, because that's the query in a lot of people's
We
minds.
should expect a fair election. Why should we not expect? We should expect a fair.
So basically, also introduced that new feature, e-signature, in the portal. After that, all the allegations. Do you think this will address the?
So it's certainly one layer of authentication. So as I said, that you have to keep improving your procedures. It just adds another layer of authentication. So that if you have, if somebody else is filing an objection using your Epic card, then you will have to be then sure that the Aadhaar card is also available with you to misuse.